confused. There's a lot of stuff out here. You always want to be abreast, and we always want to keep stuff in a historical context and let history do the argument for us. I know we go back and forth on social media with people about what is this and what is that, but history is always the best knower. History, history know everything. So we go to history to break down certain things and how things, came about, and some of the stuff we know, but it's still good to put it in perspective and go over, how things build up to where we are today. And after that, they go over some dialectic materialism. It goes over class struggle is on here, socialism, breaking that down, African proletarian nationalism, communalism, all of that good stuff that we look to do within our territories. It break down, how it's done, what's the meaning, and how you manifest and put it into practice. And so yeah, those are some of the things. The international proletarian internationalism. That's also um, a part of this piece. So this is a good piece. It's good to build on this stuff that sometimes we don't only talk about with people on social media, and half the time they don't know what the hell they talking about. Unless they in the movement, of course. People who in the sideline, they don't really know. And it's all right not to know. It's just that we, all these notions and opinions where you got history to break stuff down for you. That's why dialectic materialism part of this piece. So I read the first piece. We ain't gonna go over all this. It's probably gonna take few weeks, a few weeks to break down all this stuff. But we'll start with the first things first, with the historical piece. And we'll shuffle the reading around, but I'll start it off. Damn, I don't went far. Where am I at? Oh, here I am. Prior to the invasion of Africa, first by Arabs, then Europe by Europeans, African people were developing sophisticated cultures and had attained high levels of civilization for that period of time. Where there was not yet the consolidation of a continent wide African nation, it is clear that the African development was headed in that direction. If the development process had continued, it is highly likely that a single African nation would have emerged, which is what we trying to put into play now is more African states unified to have an intercontinental unity to survive the torture of colonialism and neo-colonialism. The rise of pre-capitalist European imperialism, or primitive white power, meaning at its early stages, baby stages, is the direct result of the enslavement of non-white peoples of the world, with the captured resources of Africa and the forced labor of African people being central to this process. Beginning in the 15th century, primitive white power began to consolidate itself based on the wealth that its attack of the rest of the world generated. Through the exploitation of African slave labor and the extermination of the indigenous people of the Americas, pre-capitalist European imperialism created the prerequisite wealth that would transform it completely. In the 19th century, pre-capitalist Europe made a leap from mercantilism into full-blown capitalism. This result of the accumulation of vast wealth from the continued extermination of indigenous people of the Americas and the enslavement of African people throughout Europe and the Western Hemisphere. The leap to capitalism by Europeans destroyed the old feudal social relations in Western Europe and brought into existence liberal bourgeoisie social organization. European domination of African resources and African labor, known as primary or primitive accumulation, is what continues to afford imperialism the economic incentive necessary to justify the establishment and the maintenance of modern global imperialism. The most significant historical development of imperialism came in the form of the secession of the United States from British control. Based on the wealth generated from enslaved African labor and the liquidation of French and Spanish control over non-British colonial territory in North America, the newly independent ruling class of the U.S. set the stage for the eventual shift to center of the modern white power from Europe to North America. That's why I always say that when people still on this 1619 thing, that's when we came to Virginia. But you see here, it was talking about Spanish and French territory. That's where we came first, when we came to Georgia and South Carolina in 1526. It's been 500 years exactly. It's January 14th. So it's 500 years. We still talking this 300 year, 400 year stuff. It's 500 years. And that's just the earliest we can prove. It could have been some, we could have been brought here before that. But the Georgia, South Carolina is where those territories where we were brought first, even before Virginia in 1619. In the last part of the 19th century and the first half of the 20th century, a series of conflicts within Europe's states led up to two major imperialist wars, otherwise known as World War I and World War II. During this imperialist wars, white power, which at the time centered itself in Europe, warred against itself over the control of Africa and other colonized lands. Because of this war, capitalist imperialism weakened its own domination of the world and destabilized the economy of Europe. Due to this white-on-white violence, and we don't say that often, do. By the end of the Second Imperialist War, the U.S. emerged victorious and became the new leader of white power, which was now fully globally and consolidated. Prior to the Spanish-American War, 1898, the U.S. was mostly concerned with expansion across the North American continent. From that point, the former U.S. policy of non-intervention in foreign wars and the international pacifism ended, and the U.S. capitalist imperial global expansion began, with the U.S. taking control of Puerto Rico, which it should not have control over today, Guantanamo, Guam, and the Philippines. Then later, Panama Canal Zone. By the end of the Second Imperialist War, the U.S. emerged as the world's superpower nation. The U.S. assisted Europe nations in rebuilding their economies in the wake of the enormous damage caused by white-on-white violence. However, the U.S. aid to Europe came with the condition that those nations submit to economic agreements that allow for the U.S. to take and maintain control over the former European capitalist empire. During this period of the reorganization of the colonial territories of the world in favor of the U.S., there was a new outbreak of hostilities for capitalism and imperialism, except this time a new force entered the world scene: communism. An unforeseen result of imperialist wars for control of Africa and the world was the rise of communism in the form of the USSR, which was the Soviet Union at the time, along with the establishment of a growing international anti-capitalist, pro-socialist movement. The two forces engaged in indirect conflicts known as the Cold War. At this time, white capitalist imperialism found itself in a growing crisis, threatened on all sides by the growth of world capitalism, by the growth of the anti-capitalist communism and the development of anti-colonial struggles throughout the world. Capitalism imperialism established a new strategy to exploit its colonial possession: neo-colonialism. which Kwame Nkrumah predicted a long time ago that that's the last stage of imperialism, is neo-colonialism. Is they're going to get the native people, the representatives from other nations, to participate in exploitation and the robbery of their own resources and participate in borrowing money from IMF and other Western forces that puts their own country and territory in debt. This indirect rule allowed, well, what am I at? Shit. Somebody pick up.
You were at under this new system of control.
Oh, okay. You can take over. Go ahead.
I got you. Under this new system of control, modern white power developed and employed the primitive petty bourgeoisie classes of Africa, the U.S. itself, and other dominated areas of the world to take the place of the former colonial administrators from Europe and North America. This indirect rule allowed capitalist imperialism to destabilize the growing revolutionary resistance of colonized African people around the world, to slow down the crisis capitalism began to experience, and to avoid a complete breakdown. It was during this period from the middle of the 20th century that a diaspora-wide revolutionary struggle took shape, and in addition to the pressures of European communism, seriously threatened to defeat modern white power. Along with the large-scale class bribery of the working class in the industrial centers and the propping up of the primitive petty bourgeoisie in the underdeveloped sections of the world, through the development of welfare states, capitalist imperialism also developed a sophisticated intelligence and military strategies. The combination of growing opportunism of the industrial working class throughout the industrial world and the establishment of modern capitalist imperialist military methods, white power began to engage in its newest strategy, counterinsurgency warfare, as a reaction to the persistent revolutionary movements of Africa and the rest of the colonized world. After counterinsurgency warfare was put into motion and the submission of white working class to the agenda of white bourgeois was complete. This meant that the white working class of the world turned a blind eye to its own exploitation in exchange for growing bank accounts. With an updated military strategy and capacity and the growing support of the white working class, capitalist imperialism liquidated the organization and leadership of the African Revolution, and then the focus of its counterinsurgency war to the repression of the African masses on the African. Yeah, Fair, if you can scroll down for me, appreciate you. I'll read that sentence again. And then it turned the focus of the counterinsurgency war to the repression of the African masses on the African continent, in the U.S. and the world and around the world. White power used neocolonialism as a primary strategy to make colonialism, the true contradiction that African and other oppressed people of the world face then and today, obscure. It covered up the fact that colonialism is the basis of our oppression, and that in the current period, the direct colonialism of the past now exists as neocolonialism. Presently, the struggle for African independence has found resurgence throughout the African diaspora, though it is still the subordinate tendency of our people, which is the direct result of counterinsurgency warfare and neocolonialism. And appreciate you. Are we reading dialectical materialism as well, or did you want to stop there?
Oh, my bad. I was on mute. Anything we take from that or any key points we want to talk about with that? With what I just read?
Oh, I guess the main thing is, I guess when I'm thinking about the international struggles that we have, especially in regards to our people. Like I know right now, there's a lot of focus on the Sahel state. I know there's some focus. There's been a light shown on what's going on in Nigeria with I know Trump. What did he do? He bombed Nigeria, or there was some type of situation out there. and he said this was in quote unquote defense of the Christians out there, which is just some propaganda. I guess the question that I'm asking is, I guess, what is our relation to the international, I guess, revolutionary struggle that is happening in Africa, and uh, how does that inspire? How does that motivate our practices that we have here? I guess within the imperial core, which we call America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, our movements have always been tied together. Of course, you got forces now that try to, um, for different reasons. Um, some of it is just that the people have given up and now they want to stick to this little cubbyhole stuff. They want to be put themselves in a box, But our movements have always been tied together, man. And really, when you see Africa standing up, you know, in whatever way, or if you seeing it being infiltrated or sabotaged, you still, if you got any kind of sense, if you, some people don't give a damn, that's fine. But if you got any sense, and when you in our field of work is that, whatever way it's going, you feel some type of way about it, you take it personally, you know, um, with whatever's going on, of course, it's always a balance. You got uh, some sides, trying to, nationalize their resources and claim their sovereignty and self-determination and step away from colonialism and neo-colonialism and get the people back on track and allow the people to benefit from their own resources. And then you got the other side, they still, like you say, for the bank accounts and the BMWs, they still doing they, business with the West, or they doing business with with Europe, and they won't let them go. They study borrowing money, putting themselves in debt, and with that come a price. Because when you in debt, now you gotta do something for me. Like in Nigeria, you mentioned Nigeria. Uh, there are forces in Nigeria that the United States is in favor of. In fact, the other day they just gave the Nigerian military some weapons. The United States did. So there are forces there, that's trying to suppress other forces. And of course they lie. They always lying about something. And Kwame Ture said they ain't lying some of the time. They lying all the damn time. And so it's always something else behind that. But of course this Christian nationalism, that is a part of their, white power structure. But is very much deeper than that. But it relate to the movement. The movement, in Africa and America, in other places, always been tied together. I don't know if there's answering the question, but it's always been tied together. That's why Malcolm X he was able to go over to Africa and meet with some of the, the realest people there. You know, even people that some people don't know he went over to and talked to about the plight of African people all over the world. And so the thing is to continue that process. It's not a 1960 thing; it's a everyday update thing. And some people get caught up in, oh, that was in the 60s. Now the 60s now because the 60s, after the 60s, in the 70s, it came a pause. The 80s and 90s came a little pause right there, especially the 80s, because we suffered a military defeat at the hands of the government. You know what I'm saying? We had a good, a good piece of the hearts and minds of the people. Um, but we, of course, we didn't have the firepower and the participation, the mass participation and the firepower to be able to withstand all of the sabotage that came our way, what I'm saying? With entertainment, the exploitation films, the incoming of drugs and things of that nature, the sabotage and the assassination of young African leaders. And so we didn't have what it takes to withstand, and so it came a pause. And so now we, picking it over the years, we done picked that back up. So yeah.
You mentioned you mentioned in the '60s, from the '60s to the '80s, because I think what 1955. That's when I think Ghana got its national liberation, and then you start to see the national liberation movement kind of like pick up from there
Yeah.
with the Black Panther Party, and then other nationalities, pushing for the same thing. Uh,
Hmm.
I guess what are some of the lessons that we can learn from the '60s um, in regards to how they were organized?
Hmm.
Because put it like this, I think a lot of people draw inspiration from what's going on internationally.
Hmm.
Uh, but how do we see that playing into kind of like what you're saying, like rebuilding that type of movement again? Like what role do we feel like that plays into, I guess, a broader movement?
Hmm. Well, the only role it could play right now is a supportive role. Uh, Neither side is strong enough to support, military or otherwise economic. Just like when Gaddafi tried to give millions of dollars to black people here in America, and he was gonna funnel them funds through the Nation of Islam and Farrakhan. And when you're not in the when you don't have the established power, or you don't have enough liberated territories or liberated zones, you kind of have to try to negotiate. So Farrakhan had to ask Bill Clinton, I believe it was Bill Clinton, um, to could he receive those funds from overseas, and Bill Clinton said no. But that's what happens when you're not in a position to really negotiate with any power. You know what I'm saying? Even though he had 20,000 people, how many other people was in the nation at that time? I don't know. I think it was more when Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm was alive, but how many other thousands of people he had in the nation, even though he had them and still got them, that wasn't enough of a threat, for Bill Clinton to have to ponder on it. Like, should they, you know what I'm saying? It's a done deal as far as his mind was made up. Now you niggas can't accept shit from no Libya. You know what I'm saying? So those are the type of things. So right now, just really a supportive role. And that's where we left off in the 60s, you know what I'm saying, with the Black Panther Party having a chapter in Algeria and, supporters in Vietnam and places like that. It probably would have had them in more places, you know what I'm saying? Had that, all the military defeat and all the, crushing of our movement didn't take place like that. But the lesson we have to learn from the 60s, one of them is the biggest thing is that the 60s, you know what I'm saying, was about mobilization. People think it was about organization, but it was not. Not saying people weren't organized, you know what I'm saying? You have to be organized for a group of 18 to 23-year-olds that the Black Panther Party had, and, you know, be able to, service the people with medical care and to bring health professionals in, doctors who sympathize with the movement, and you know what I'm saying, and to ambulance programs and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying, feeding kids every day. Supporting liberation school. You have to be some level of organization to pull that off. But as a whole, we were more mobilized than we were organized. Because if we was organized very sophisticated and strategically, that military defeat of our movement would have been a little bit harder, even for the United States government. Um, but it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't as hard as we would have liked it to be in. And the same thing today. You know what I'm saying? Is that it's still not a difficult task because as time go on, as our movement try to raise itself back up and come to life, they studied growing militarily, just like it said in this passage. You know what I'm saying? They changed their strategy. They said, okay, this is what we gonna do. We gonna step up. We gonna step up the sabotage, the infiltration, military. We finna get on it. And that's what they did. You know what I'm saying? And every day they doing this while we just trying to survive and pay our bills and make things happen for our family. You know what I'm saying? They making these moves. And so while we recuperating and try to recruit people and give people the information and education, they study building what they building. You know what I'm saying? And so, it's just it has to be a sophisticated thing, right? Throughout time we've had the tools in the way, but because of how those tools were presented, I'm speaking of technology, we don't use the tools for what we really could use them for. We don't use them to advance ourselves. We just entertain ourselves. And of course, arguing shit online. But these tools could be used to mobilize and organize us in a sophisticated way. But you know what I'm saying? Certain things that have to be in place. You know what I'm saying? Chain of command, accountability process. It's a whole lot of things that go into that. And because of the American culture, you know what I'm saying, dumbs us down a little bit, and we don't even think on those levels. Yep. Yeah, good.
I was gonna ask another question, but I want to, I'm gonna allow other people to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
They doing too much up there.
No, I guess what's your critique of I guess the if we want to call it a movement right now? Well, what's your critique of how Black people are mobilized now? Like we're seeing, I guess if we're just speaking on like maybe the past 5-10 years, of course we had the George Floyd protests. We
Mhm.
followed that up with the what's it called, the boycott Target situation with
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Jamal, what's his name, Jamal Bryant, Pastor Jamal Bryant. Uh, as far as like international or national liberation demonstrations or whatever, or matter of fact, I take that back. So we seen the George Floyd protests, we seen
Mhm.
the Target boycott, we seen Black people come out to what's it called, the hands off Trump protest, the 50-51 whatever protest. What's your
Oh, no kings. You talking about
yeah,
no
the No
kings?
Kings, yeah.
Yeah.
uh Based upon where you see black people putting themselves uh in these demonstrations, in these protests, I guess, do you see anything for the future? What do you see anything, how can I put this, based upon what you see now, what do you think could be done for it to be elevated? It doesn't have to be necessarily, you know, it, I guess, elevated to like the next level, to where it's like, okay, we see Black people are going to, like, the boycott Target deal, even though it's not like a younger demographic. Like, at least from what I've seen, it's like,
No, yeah. It's older, yeah.
yes, it's older people. As far as the No Kings protest, it's I think it's like a mixed age demographic. But I guess based upon what you see in these instances, in these moments, uh, I guess, what do you think the potential is?
Uh, I mean, shoot, it's always potential there. The potential has always been there. We got smart people. We got people with all kind of gifts and talents and creativity that they just don't use. The protests, yeah, that's cool. But the way I look at things is that the protest in a store and a company is cool, but to me, you have to protest the whole system. What I'm saying is that some of these people that's protesting, they glad because their nephew just went to the U.S. military, or their daughter, or their son. You see what I'm saying? And I'm
Yeah.
saying that as long as we don't change the language, and as long as we don't get out of the mindset set of we're the underling of white power, as long as we fine with being the underling, as long as we find with being the footstool of capitalism and slavery, it's all just gonna be child's play, is how I see it. You know what I'm saying? That's how I look at it. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to, society, period. You know what I'm saying? Like anti-imperialist war. We always gotta be against that. What they doing in Venezuela? This is a goddamn crime. I'm talking about to its highest order. Shit, it's already been voted on. It's illegal. Yeah, they still got Maduro and his wife. They beating him up and shit. They doing all kind of bullshit. Netanyahu. People talk about Hitler. Man, Netanyahu is him. I'm telling you, he the biggest war criminal ever. Shit, in the past 50 years, Netanyahu is that guy. But he doing his thing. You know what I'm saying? And nobody dealing with that. And so I'm saying these kind of questions that the everyday household got to be understanding. You know what I'm saying? These kind of things. Where we stand against capitalism and slavery. This is capitalism and slavery. It ain't changed. And the more we know that, the more we can lean toward, okay, that gets to some freedom then. Shit, if this capitalism is slavery, what the fuck is the opposite? And that's how we got to get people to thinking. You know what I'm saying? It ain't just hit them with their pocket. Oh, you got to hit them with their pockets and all this old stuff. You can hit them with their pocket all day. They trillions of dollars in debt. They don't give a damn. You know what I'm saying? If you're not talking about taking power from them, the power dynamic is always it. If the masses ain't talking about taking over and changing the parasitic relationship of have and have nots, they not worried. You know what I'm saying? For real. You know what I'm saying? So the thing is, I went back to the you mentioned a lot of the boycotts is led by people who are older as opposed to the youth. Well, that's one of the problems too. Now, that's one of the things that the 60s was ahead of us on. They had young people out there out front. Now the young people had um leadership, they had guidance, they had what's the word? Apprenticeship. They had apprenticeship now. They went out there and know it all, do everything and do everything perfectly and they were leading everything, but they was out front. The problem we have today, the young people, you know what I'm saying? The younger people are not as politically educated and trained. You know what I'm saying? To go out there and you gotta have the youth. That's why Huey P. Newton said the youth always inherit the revolution, because people who working every day and working multiple jobs and businesses and shit, they don't necessarily have time to lead them. Even though some of us, I mean, we work too. All of us on here work and do our thing, but we already seasoned. Some of us been doing this shit since we was young, so it's a difference between that and somebody who started out young and somebody who's 30-year-old, 35, you trying to recruit them and they got 5 kids and you know what I'm saying? And car repo, whatever it is, the insurance high, they got to deal with that. But we got to train the youth. We have to really train them and we got to be honest with them. We got to train them to be revolutionaries. And that's just the bottom line. We pussyfooting around. We want to say shit that people like. We liberal. That's just the real is. We too damn liberal. At this day and time, we got to tell people exactly what it is. And it is the way to do that in their language. It ain't like we got to be scholarly with the shit. You know what I'm saying? It ain't like we got to be coming like W.B. Du Bois and shit. But we don't. We could talk in the people's language. We know how to talk in the people's language. We the people. We stay where, you know what I'm saying? So, but we got to let them know in their language what it is. This is what's going on. This is where we need to, without running them off. You know what I'm saying? But that's just the bottom line. We at that point in history. We got to get away from the Trump thing, and it ain't just Trump. Because if it was just Trump, he wouldn't be able to do this shit. United States and sanction this shit. They saying it's illegal, it's dead, we don't support. Well, if you don't support, why he ain't in jail, arrested, or killed, whatever. Which one you want to pick? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But yeah, you know what I'm saying? But he's still doing his thing. Motherfuckers say they disagree, he wrong, he this and that. But let somebody
It's,
else in another country be wrong. They got 20 million motherfuckers over there bombing them and shit. But this
I think
motherfucker can do what he
it's
wants.
all
Go
just
ahead.
divide and conquer. Like they just
Right,
causing the masses to divide and argue over something because the Democrats and the Republicans basically say the same shit. The only
right,
thing
right.
different is one is more upfront and one is kind of low key about how they present it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So we got to get the people out there. They got to understand that dynamic. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, anyway, but yeah, that's the thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, organization. You know, organization is the thing that we got to learn from back then to now. We got to educate liberation schools. We got to get them back going all across the country. You need liberation schools. You know, to deprogram our youth and to get them on the young pioneers and get them, on the path of understanding leadership. See what I'm saying? In that way, we are behind. You understand like Chairman Fred Hampton Sr. A lot of people think, oh yeah, he was Black Panther. You know what I'm saying? This and that. But this guy, this young man was watched by the feds at age 14, 15. See what I'm saying? Like, why is he being watched that young? Because he was already groomed. You know what I'm saying? He was put into a place where his intelligence antenna was up. So he organized and showing his leadership at 15 years old. Mobiyaju Bujamal, the same thing. Minister of Communication, age 16. See what I'm saying? This is kind of stuff we talking about. These are kind of the young people we need to put back in the game. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it is. And another thing, because the young is the most courageous. That's another reason you want the young guy to get involved. Cause they the most courageous. By the time you get our age, you got so many goddamn doubts. You doubting if you gonna do good on this fucking job interview, shit, with all the credentials. You know what I'm saying? You got so many doubts in your head. But when you young, you think cause I remember being real young and I didn't give a fuck. Shit, I thought it was all for the taking. Shit, and didn't give a damn. You know what I'm saying? So when you young, you think, oh, we can do this shit. You know what I'm saying? Once you have a certain, mindset, you know what I'm saying, certain principles that you stand on, you think you can conquer anything. So anyway, but yeah, that's some of the things I think, will at least put us in some place. I ain't gonna say it's gonna advance us, but but anyway. But
No, I agree because I think there's a huge gap, meaning that like for someone like you, you know, the Black Panthers, um, I, I'll put it like this, like no, well, I'll speak for me, right? So when I came in, like it wasn't nobody was like, pulling my jacket, being like, "Hey, this is the Black Panthers." You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
like it took me a while to get to that point, but like for me, I was looking for like, well, who's the Black leader now? So the only person I saw that was being, given a light was Farrakhan. So I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, I'm seeing all these radicals and everything, but I guess who's speaking for Black America right now is Farrakhan. And I'm saying that to say, like, as far as who young people have to look at as quote unquote radical, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that gap to like what you're saying, as far as what they're being taught and who's teaching them in that, like their elders, their mentors. And it's like
Yes.
it feels like we kind of have to compensate for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that puts us in a interesting position or an interesting spot. I mean, it's just the work we got to do. But as far as like there being like a perpetual situation where we're learning from our mistakes, because after like to what you saying with the '80s, like I guess the movement being defeated, like immediately Nixon is talking about like black capitalism. So that just kind of like
Oh
was just
yeah.
like the cherry on top
Mm-hmm.
for the government. So it was kind of like, well, all right, well, we're gonna try the black capitalism thing. And now you have a generation where you got people looking at what's this light skinned man name? Uh um uh
Kamal Franklin.
no, not Kamal, not Kamal. John Hope Bryant.
I'm just
John
joking.
Hope Bryant.
I'm just
Uh
messing around.
yeah, all these like financial literacy gurus, whatever.
Right. Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
they're the
Them
ones
and
being deemed
Boris
like
Watkins and
radical.
those guys. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
it's this like this work we gotta do. But I'll take it off of me because Cam asked the question in the chat.
Yeah, I was looking at that. Uh-huh.
He
Yeah,
said,
he's saying,
I'll just read it out loud for you. It's hard to get people involved in a movement nowadays because I feel that folks are more focused on trying to survive and maintain balance in this presidency. I straight up heard people say that they couldn't care less about what's going on in Congo, Palestine, etc., because they have their own bills.
yeah.
What could one say to individuals with that mindset?
Ooh, shit.
That's a hard one because some people just ignorant.
Hell,
But
leave that one out.
one thing I would say that just because they don't believe in we probably can start the conversation at a minimal level, which is like
Yeah.
about the movement instead of talking about people from Palestine and
Yeah, yeah,
Congo
yeah,
because
yeah,
they
yeah,
might not
yeah.
be Pan Africanism. You know, they might not just because they're not Pan African don't mean that they won't get involved in the movement. You
Yeah,
might have
that's
to just
true.
take away that dialogue. Everybody, sometimes you have
Yep.
to reach people on what they're interested in. If they were interested in fuck the police, let's start there. You know what I'm saying? If
Yeah.
they're interested in
Uh,
gardening or whatever they're interested in, you pull them by their interests, not so much on the political talks that we be having because everyone is not going to gravitate
mm-hmm.
toward that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's at least right. You got to redirect shit. And you can relate, and you can even you can talk about that without talking about it. You know what I'm saying? Like you can talk about what's going on over there, but talk about how it relates to their community. And they can, you know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? They can understand this shit more. But like you say, shit, Joker try to do their thing. They ain't, you know what I'm saying? Cause the thing is too is if you're not a studier, if you're not studying like we are, the only time you gonna even come across the international shit, if this is like big news, like the average person seen the Maduro thing, but they don't know what's going on in Nigeria, and they don't know that, it's sneaky ass forces trying to, sabotage, what's going on in Burkina Faso. Like you gotta look at news a long time to even see some of it. You know what I'm saying? So, they don't have the networks that we have to feed upon. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, they not reading themselves or they not connected with certain networks and sources that deal with the truth. They don't even know where to begin with that stuff. You know what I'm saying? All they know is what the news say, and you know. Some of our people don't even believe the news. They just like, shit, why I'm looking at that? They telling some, I don't know if they telling me the whole story no way. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, but
Yeah.
definitely you got to redirect. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's where the mutual aid comes in because I think usually what that I feel like what the tone is when they say they don't care about it is like I feel like they're saying like, well, what does that got to do with me?
Yeah, yeah, right.
Exactly.
How does that affect me? Does that put food on my table? Does that put money in my wallet? And it's like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, indirectly
I
it
think
does.
people have kind of grew the stigma too that if it's not happening to them and their families, they don't care.
Yeah.
Like, for
It ain't,
instance, when
yeah,
we were
right.
out there and we did the candlelight visual, well, at first they were like, "Well, why are we doing it for this guy?" I think it was more. I forgot the man's name, but we did it for him. He was on. I think he got executed, and
Yeah, Khalifa.
there you go, Khalifa. We did it for him, and everybody out there was kind of like, "Well, we don't know him. He not from Dallas." Da 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 da. But
Oh,
when
damn.
but when the dude got killed out there in the pinks, and we went out there, it was a difference because they
Oh,
understand the
yeah.
feeling. So
Yeah, that's
sometimes they
true.
just kind of like Eric said, you got to make them relate to it. So if you're talking about something that's international, you need to bring it back to local so they can understand. Even if you understand international, they may not. And I think he had another question about how can his cyber security help the movement.
My answer there is I don't know. But I will say this. I will say this. And we got to get to some of these pieces too. Dialectic materialism is good piece. It break down, certain things and how things work scientifically. And I'm gonna read just up to two maybe today. But to go back to that, I just feel like anything that we are involved in professionally or whatever, if we use it, I mean, it's ways to use it. I think the person know. I think you know what I'm saying, Ken, I think you know more than anybody. You know what I'm saying? would know how to use that for our benefit. It's just that you just got to have the mindset and the principles. It just, in this society, so many of our people have so many talents, but they're not using their talents for us. They using it for the power structure. So all of the technicians and the engineers and the scientists and the combat fighters, they using all their skills for the slave master. So, as long as you have a principles of liberation, uh, I'm sure it's a way that you could use that in our favor. I can't tell you how in specific with that, but I know it's a way. You just gotta, as long as you have a mindset, you'll be able to, figure it out. You like, what, I can do this. You know what I'm saying? You brainstorm a little bit, you could figure it out. You know what I'm saying? But it definitely could be a use. I think most things we deal with in life is useful to our cause. It's just the masses don't use it for that. You know what I'm saying? You got three people trying to use their talents for what we doing, but the other people are not doing it. And that's the biggest difference. But let me read this here. This dialectic materialism. It's like 4 pieces, but we'll do a few just as much as we can do. Let's see. Let me go back up here. Dialectic materialism is the combination of scientific materialism with the dialectical method and is the core philosophy that Pan-African internationalism is based on. 1. Philosophy is a general attempt to explain the nature of the world and particularly of humanity's place and destiny in it. It is a world outlook. Because society is divided into classes, the philosophies that exist in society always express what we talking about, express the views of the class they come from. No philosophy is neutral or impartial. Philosophy always reflects class interest. In general, the leaders of society are responsible for conveying and spreading philosophy. If the working class in general and the African working class in particular intends to become the leaders of society, then it must be developed and consolidate its own class philosophy among the members of the class. Philosophy that articulates the views of the working class, including and expressing and defense of its interests. As long as the African working class carries the philosophy of the exploiting classes, it cannot overturn its exploitation and oppression. Scientific materialism is a way of understanding and describing the world around us as it really is. Scientific materialism recognizes that everything in nature is matter and matter comes from matter. All things, including ideas and philosophies, are the result of the development of matter. Based on this, scientific materialism understands that the matter is primary reality that gives everything its character. It recognizes that the matter as the main, matter as the main reality and basis of all things exists independently of all ideas and perception of it. Based on this foundation, scientific materialism further understands that everything in material reality is constantly in motion. It exposes as fact that matter and motion cannot be separated, that matter cannot exist without motion and vice versa, and that neither motion nor matter have a beginning or ending. The ultimate reality of matter is that it is constantly transforming from one state of existence to another. This means that there is always something new coming into existence and is always something old that is dying away. These processes cannot be reduced to the smallest or most basic parts because these ultimate constituent parts do not exist. Scientific materialism also recognizes that all things are connected and that nothing exists in isolation from the rest of nature. Because of this, nothing can be correctly understood by itself, and that in order to understand anything correctly, it has to be studied in its relationship to other things. Scientific materialism recognizes also that because all things are material, that there is nothing mysterious. The world and the laws that govern it can be understood. While there are things that may not be known at any one time, and though not all things can be known at once, there is nothing that people are incapable of understanding. The only thing that limits our understanding is our ability to investigate. In the end, everything begins and ends with matter. In short, the matter is the primary to all existence. Matter is always in motion and things are always changing. The laws of matter, regardless of anyone's ideas, govern all things. All things are connected. All things can be known. And the only way to know the truth of anything is to understand it in its relationship to other things. Dialect seeks to understand things as they really are by identifying the real nature of things. Dialects recognize that all things have at least two tendencies, which are opposite but dependent on each other. The struggle between these opposite tendencies is the basis on which the constant changes, which all things are constantly undergoing, happen. Dialect sees the internal contradictions as the driving force of all development, and that without internal contradiction, there can be no growth. These internal contradictions cause quantitative changes to happen in a thing. And at a certain point, these changes manifest as an abrupt qualitative change that transforms things from one state of existence to another state. Dialectics recognize that in order to understand things, there must be an investigation into the internal contradictions and the interconnection of things. Further, the conclusion of investigation must be constantly tested and verified through the practical application of those conclusions to in the real world. Dialectical investigation attempts to expose the contradictions in a particular thing, resolve those contradictions, and as a result, arrive at a correct or objective truth of the real nature of a thing. It begins with the question about something that attempts to answer those questions by opposing ideas that try to answer the question based on information that has already been gathered, observation of the thing, and the experience with the thing. The dialectical method of investigation then tests the ideas and exposes errors or elements that don't match material reality. And what is that? And ideas about the thing and investigated. When those contradictions are exposed in the idea either is corrected or discarded. And the other ideas are developed and tested until the correct ideas are the only ones left. Key to the dialectical method of investigation is the requirement that the person or people involved in investigation seek only the objective truth and that they will be willing to let go of ideas or positions that are proven false. When the dialectical method is combined with scientific materialism, the resulting method of understanding and investigation, the world and everything in it that is constantly accurate is in its results and is the only limited. Where are you going? Is the only limit of our own abilities. Let me see if this one. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can finish this one up. This one paragraph. Dialectical materialism gives the working class the ability to overturn ideas. Dialectical materialism gives the working class the ability to overturn ideas. And that practice, which are based on those ideas which operate to continue our exploitation and oppression. It does not respect tradition merely because it is tradition, but rigorously seeks to understand things by examining material conditions, their interconnections and their changes without myth or fantasy. Dialectical materialism, by its very nature, is revolutionary and helps the exploited and oppressed to understand how to transform society in the best possible way for the masses of people all over the world. Because of this, dialectical materialism is the best suited philosophy to direct the work of African liberation and is the foundation of Pan-African internationalism, the only philosophy that can lead to liberated, united socialist Africa. Anything on that? Let me see. Oh, class struggle. I can read that too. So there go Q. There you go. You answer some of your questions. I can read class struggle if y'all don't mind. It's just 4 points there. Class struggle. Pan-African internationalism takes the position that the result of human development in society is divided into distinct classes. The owning ruling class, the bourgeoisie, the owning expiring ruling class, the petty bourgeoisie, the non-owning laboring class, the industrial agricultural proletariat, which most of society is, and the unemployed or the underemployed laboring class that participate in a legal economy, what people call a lumpen proletariat. These classes all have a common interest, basis, and origin, and exist in irreconcilable contradiction to one another. Each class has a dominant worldview, and this worldview is determined either by the class itself or it is imposed on the class by another class. The task of the Pan-African Internationalist is to unite the working class in alliance with the peasantry around its true class interests and mobilize the working class against the owning ruling class and its allies. Everybody all right?
Yeah, we hanging in there.
Oh, y'all good? You will go some more or what? You gotta let me know.
We rocking with you.
Okay, we ain't gonna go over this whole thing. It's a lot of stuff which is gonna bring discussion, but uh the next piece is socialism. I guess we can at least do that. If y'all don't mind. It ain't long either. Some of these ain't long. I think the next one is long, but we can deal with that next time. Let's see, go back up. Socialism. The Pan-African International takes the position that the capitalist mode of economic production is the central contradiction from which the oppression and the exploitation of the proletariat comes from, while at the same time being the source of advancement in economic production in the current period. In order to eliminate the exploitation of the working class must transform the capitalist mode of production out of existence by gaining control over the means of production and socializing the distribution of wealth according to the overall needs of the people involved in production on the basis of the material conditions that exist. The struggle to gain control of the means of production and distribution of wealth is the primary expression of the class struggle between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. It is clear that the bourgeoisie is not willing to allow this transformation to happen peacefully and is in determination to use any means necessary to check the inevitable development of society that demands a revolutionary struggle that is also committed to victory by all means necessary. The transformation of the mode of production must be a temporary step that continues to develop into the complete collectivization of production and wealth in society. So that answers people questioning them. Oh, socialism, you still have rules. You still people telling you what to do and da 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 da. Yeah, I just said the transformational mode of production ain't where you stop at. The goal is not to even have a state at all. But you got to start somewhere. And ain't nothing wrong with a state if they got principal people in the chain of command and in governing positions. The problem is people claiming stuff that they not about. But that's not a knock on the philosophy. That's a knock on the person itself or the people. But that's where the labor movements come in too. You know what I'm saying? You know, you know, holding accountable these corporate bosses and stuff, and demand that they do what the workers want. You know, that's a step, and that's one reason I think that a big a big support for the labor movements in this day and time is very necessary. Because that's a starting point. Because most people are where are most people in the daytime from 9 to 5? They at work. Unless you're an entrepreneur or you got a trap house somewhere, you know, or you're begging, you know, so it's most people are at work. That's where they spend most of their time. So that's the place that they can, you know, uh, be really invested in transforming is the workplace. And holding these corporate bosses accountable is how a lot of revolutionary movements, you know, started. You know, it's how you got Labor Day. That's how you got an 8-hour work day. Now, a lot of us in this day and time, we done got bougie. We don't want to work no 8 hours. That's too long. Shit, fuck that. I want to have my own business. But the thing is that when at the time that it was pushed, you know, one of the person who pushed it was a black woman named Lucy Parsons. You know, when her and a lot of the labor, you know, the revolutionary forces in labor at that time, 1890s and stuff like that. Well, no. What was this? 1880s, 1890s, yeah. At that time, you know, early 1900s, you know, most people was working fucking 15, 20 hours a day. So that's a revolutionary move considering what was going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a lot of men that didn't see their family, you know what I'm saying, to the morning time, shit, when they were going to school. When they got by the time they got home, shit, dinner was on the table and they eat the dinner and kiss their wife and go to sleep and wake up and do it again for 15 to 20 hours. You know what I'm saying? And so subtracting it, minimizing it to an 8-hour workday was a revolutionary thing at that point. And the problem ain't the 8-hour workday. The problem is we haven't evolved from what that was. You know what I'm saying? Lucy Parsons way back a long time ago. And, you know, we still just going with the flow. We just complaining about it. But they took action. So if we want, you know, more provisions and a reality that fits what we want as workers, we need to let that shit be known. And we need to be courageous enough and organized enough to make these demands be met by these corporations because they getting away with even more than they did in the primitive stages. So anybody got anything else on that?
No, I agree. I think a lot of the movements right now, I think a lot of them are what's the word? I think they're liberal. You know what I mean? Um, Even with the ICE stuff and all this. Um, how can I put this? I think it's liberal, but I don't think that's necessarily its end all be all. I think a lot of people will, um, if they're educated about social transformation, then they'll start to see the limitations of um, just abolishing ICE. Because then if we abolish ICE, then are we still having the same social relations between capitalist and worker, where the capitalist um, still has the means of production, centralized in his ownership, his own private ownership. So it's going to have to come to a realization where, um, you know, it goes beyond itself as far as just abolishing ICE, but it needs to become a situation where we start seeing things. Well, the only way we can abolish ICE. I mean, Kamau said this on his video. I think Yafael sent it in the chat, but he was like, the only way we can do that is by, the workers controlling the state. So,
Yeah.
so that's why
Mm-hmm.
when I see these protests, when I see these movements, I'm optimistic. You know what I mean? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
even in our own efforts with the Stop Cop City stuff, I think there's still so much more potential. I think the George Floyd protests is still, this is my own personal opinion, but I think it's still kind of like relatively fresh in people's mind.
Yeah.
So I think that gives it opportunity, or that gives it space um, to be, what's the word I'm looking for? to exceed past, to learn from the lessons from its last time and go beyond it. And I say that also with, the ICE protests as well that sprouted up through California. We had some out here in Texas. There was some up north as well. So hopefully they learn from these lessons, seeing how the National Guard was mobilized, for these deportations out here, how ICE is militarized and what these things mean for a labor movement in the future. So, as you stated earlier, it's just going to take a lot of education. It's going to take a lot of reflection, especially if we're talking about dialectical materialism. Reflection plays such a huge part because reflection is indicative of a conscious subject. So someone that is aware of its objective and its need to take that object and make it its own. So that's how I see the state. That's how I see a lot of the movements that we got going on. So I'm looking forward to the future.
Yeah, as long as the whole thing is, as long as you got to be intentional. As long as the people understand that what you're really battling is the military-industrial complex. That's what you're battling. When you're out there protesting, you're not protesting a name. ICE, it could be ICE fire. 2 years from now, it could be the snowmen. They be out there, they call them motherfuckers the snowmen. And whoever's the dumbass president at that time, Democrat, Republic, white, black, green, or yellow, you know what I'm saying? They could release the snowman into the community and they do the same shit. You know what I'm saying? But you're really fighting a military-industrial complex because that's a part of it. And as long as people know that, you know what I'm saying, it's fine to push these campaigns against them, especially what they're doing to people out from all over the world, shit. You know what I'm saying? They attacking people that ain't part of protest, they ain't part of protest, black, Latino, every goddamn, but they just acting a fool. But you always got to know to what extent, you always got to know what you're fighting. And that's what people got to understand. So while the protesters and the people rallying are doing their thing, people behind the scenes supposed to be organizing to get them you know what I'm saying, to keep the people who mobilizing on the same point with the organizers. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to what has been in history, not all of history, but in last 50 years or so, maybe more, is that the protesters are the ones that's seen as the ones that are impatient and gung ho and shit like that, and the organizers are the patient, passive. But that ain't how this shit work. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could be gung ho and courageous all the fuck you want. If you ain't organized, you ain't getting rid of ICE, the snowman, the light man. You ain't getting rid of the Navy SEALs, the Marine. You ain't getting rid of none of that shit. They're coming out of Washington unless you're organized with sophisticated strategy, with principled unity, and understanding exactly what the end goal is. If you ain't got that, you could be out there cussing and yelling at a motherfucker, throwing rocks at them, shoot, whatever you want to do. And that's what protests got to understand. And the organizers got to understand that you must motivate the mobilizers. You can't tell them, nigga, you ain't organized in 8 months. You what? Yes, sir. You can't have that, boy. You don't need that. What do you need this for? No, you already ate it. Snap. You good. You can't eat no, you can maybe tomorrow. So when the organizers got to understand, you can't discourage the mobilized. Like, hey, you motherfuckers out there doing all that, you know what I'm saying? You ain't organized. You got to feed off each other. And that's how you got to do that, with the understanding of what's going on and what you're really fighting and what you're really trying to do. And that's take power. You ain't really just trying to do reaction. Oh, you see what they doing? Yeah, they been doing this shit. This ain't nothing new. We always think it's something new. Yafael mentioned it the other day when he was talking about he had did a ancestry thing and followed his family, you know what I'm saying, to the Tulsa race rise and all this, and even beyond that. And he was like, a lot of time people think when they got a name in the family, they the first ones that got the name, or it's people who have done some prestigious in the family. They think they the first one. You know what I'm saying? But when you really investigate, you ain't the first one. Shit, it was a mother in your family doing that shit 100, 200 years ago. And that's how we got to understand what we doing. This shit Trump and all them doing, it's unique and it's all right because it's unique to the present time. You know what I'm saying? So something is changing. There's always something that's different than what it was yesterday. But all this stuff is the same thing. It ain't nothing different than the Spanish-American War back in 1898. Shit, what? You see me talking? What do you want? It's almost time for bed, buddy. Go relax and chill out. What do you need? There's nothing else. Yeah, I know. So yeah, it's just it's all the same stuff. It feels new because we in a new time. You know what I'm saying? Just like religious people, all religious people think the end times is every time wherever they at. Shit, it's the last days. Shit, they 200-300 years ago, they great uncle said that same shit. But anyway, with anything else?
Not for me. This was great.
Yeah. We'll pick up. I don't know how y'all like Thursday. I like Thursday. I like Wednesday, but uh, I'm on the National PE committee. I be meeting with them on Wednesday, so it'll be hard to do both. But I like Thursday around this time. We can keep it going. Every week from now, then maybe we'll do every other week or something after that.
That's cool.
What y'all say?
That's cool with me, man.
Okay. Well, we'll do it like that. And we'll continue next time, man. Shoot, y'all enjoy the rest of your night. Yeah, stay asleep. Wake up, man.
Nah, I'm right here. I'm good. I'm
Oh,
good. I'm
you,
good. I'm good.
you back on the screen? Oh, that's me.
Yeah. So I'm good. So yeah, that was a pretty good discussion you had there. So yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, just um definitely well, let me say this, Eric. Is this going to be strictly, in your opinion? Well, you know what? I ask offline. Just make sure I'm on the same page. But
Oh,
I,
okay.
yeah, y'all have a good night. Hold on, stay with me real quick. Let me